I want to introduce our speaker. We're very honored to have John Rajewski here with us. He's a professor at Champlain College, and he's actually part of the National Center of Digital Forensics and Academic Excellence. I guess the Champlain was named as one of the few schools. It's the first school in the Northeast to be named as part of that. In addition, he's the director of the Leahy Center for Digital Investigation, so he knows about this topic. John?
Hi. Thank you very much. I want to first and foremost thank SCORE for inviting me, and especially Luis and Denise for kind of setting this up. It's really, I want to make sure you're getting as much as you can out of this talk. So I have a lot of slides. They're all printed out. You can take a look at them. The video will be posted online. But what I'm really going to try to talk about is tactical things that you can do to really make an impact. We're going to talk a little bit about some laws and some things you can do, but really, I'm more interested in trying to help you prevent from being victimized by someone online, some hacker, some attacker, some inside employee that could potentially do you some harm. A little bit about my background. I've been doing digital forensics and cybersecurity my entire career. I grew up in Buffalo, and my first job was in New Jersey, and I did a lot of consulting globally. That firm was acquired, and then travel got really crazy in my life. And my wife and I found Burlington, Vermont about 2007-ish, 2008, and we just never looked back. We love it here. It's a great opportunity for our kids to grow up, and I love what I do at Champlain College, which is help direct a digital forensic cybersecurity laboratory that engages students, but we also do a lot of professional services in the industry, and mostly in Chittenden County when people become victimized from cybercrime. This is a quick picture of what it looks like in there. We had the honor of having the FBI director and Senator Leahy, obviously, who's the namesake from our center, visit us not too long ago. We're doing some pretty interesting stuff. Who knows what the Internet of Things are, heard of them, the IoT? Do you have them in your house? I do. They're really nice and convenient, but I'm here to tell you that some of them are really not secure. And we can talk about that during Q&A if you want or offline. Please check out my TEDx talk. I talk about it. The fitness trackers that we wear, these little sensors that are all over your house, are truly tracking a lot of information about you, and it's important for you to be educated if you want that in your life or not. We have just under an hour to talk. I'm going to try to give you as much information as possible. And what I really want you to think about is, do you think your data is safe? Nope. Good one. And what I like to do is then classify it. So what data do you really care about? You don't need to necessarily, it's hard to safeguard everything in your life. But if you were to say, I keep all of my information in a database, or I use Gmail or some cloud-hosted email provider, spreadsheets, documents, pictures, video, it depends on your company. It's your intellectual property. What are you trying to safeguard? Once you identify that, it becomes a lot easier, instead of just trying to keep everything safe. And then where does it live? Is it on laptops? Is it in databases? Is it up in the cloud? Do you trust your data in the cloud? You've probably heard in the news lately, like, people get hacked every other day. So why do we trust this cloud thing? And should you trust it? And then specifically, what you really want to focus on is stuff that is near and dear to your heart, your intellectual property, your crown jewels, but also things that would get you into trouble with attorneys general's offices and federal government. Whereas if you have any PII, or personal identifiable information, so that is different. We're going to talk a little bit about this in a couple slides. Different state by state about who classifies what as what. But more importantly, and equally as important, I'd argue, is protect the health information. So if you work in the medical field, you're actually taking surveys of your customers, and you're asking them for some health information, that is also regulated. And if that data gets compromised, there's some serious penalties to be worried about. And it really comes down to what makes sense for your organization, because every organization is different. I heard a gentleman over here sells vegetables. I don't think you have health information, but you might. It's important to be aware of. And there is a silver bullet to all of this. There is a golden ticket, remember that movie? That is, just get off the internet, right? Just unplug. You need mobility and ubiquity. I need to be able to get to all my files on my phone at any given moment. If you're an insurance agent, do you really need to get access to all of your customer information on your phone? Maybe, but then that's really up to you. And what it really comes down to, if you ask an IT professional, make my network ultra secure, they will. But the reality is the usability is going to go way down. It's going to take 10 minutes to log into the network. You're only going to be able to log in from one machine. You can't have a laptop. It becomes not too functional. And this is what happens. We have usability that gets cranked up. Who uses cloud storage like Dropbox or Google Drive? And those that don't know what that is, that's like having a thumb drive, but everywhere in the world. Anywhere there's an internet connection, you can get to your files. It's super convenient. You can share files, you can upload files. I use it, but it's not, because it's on a computer that isn't yours, it is technically like a vulnerability. You're not controlling the data, it's somewhere else. That said, I do want to disclose, Dropbox is relatively secure. Don't worry, it's safe to use Dropbox. But it really comes down to what's important to you and how do you really want to save social security numbers up in Dropbox? I wouldn't personally, that's pretty scary. How many people have IT staffs? None of you. Cool. So ask yourself this question. When was the last time you experienced a data breach? Has anyone experienced one? I've been involved in them. And one raising their hand. How was the experience?
I felt violated. It's going back 2001. I was running computer systems for a school, and our web server got hacked.
And it happens in Vermont. It happens everywhere. What I don't like is victim blaming. You know, if someone gets hacked, there may be some liability because they didn't safeguard the system, but the reality is a lot of people just shift to like blaming the victim, when the reality is there's a criminal who broke into that network and did some evil, did some criminal activity. The scary thing is when I ask some IT staff, and even some very mature companies, saying, when's the last time they had a breach? Like, we've never been breached. And then I ask them, are you currently breached? And that's a really hard question to answer, because unless you really have mature systems and processes and good people on your staff to actually deal with a breach and to monitor for a breach, it's hard to tell. So to ask yourself, do you think you're currently breached? Hopefully the answer is no, but it's kind of hard if you're doing it by yourself to determine if you're breached, but there's steps I'm going to talk about today that will help you not get breached. So if you're a sole proprietor, like most of you in the room are, we surveyed before this talk started, I would say who owns cybersecurity in your organization? Who's responsible for it? You are, unless you have an intern or something. And it really comes down to, this is the fun animation, who's really accountable for it. And you have to own it, unless you're going to actually take it seriously. And who's going to be accountable for it? No one's really going to take it seriously. I talk to people. I typically get involved in people's lives when they're most vulnerable. They've just been hacked. You heard a gentleman over there saying, "I felt like I've just got victimized. Someone broke into my server and stole my files." That's a bad feeling to have. And if you take cybersecurity seriously, and you're always thinking about, is this safe? Should I send this file via Dropbox, or should I send this link or click this link? And typically in organizations, you've got people blaming each other, or kind of saying security is both a legal and an IT problem. And then the legal team says, security is a technical problem. Can't we just put passwords on everything? Human resource teams will say, security is trouble, and we don't like trouble. And then IT is going to say, we can't control what the employees do. Employees just click links all the time. If you were to set up a framework for yourself, it's really important for you to know what your policy is, what your comfort level is with security, and privacy and expectations about what is safe and what is not safe. And if you are literally working for yourself, if you're thinking about things we're going to talk about in a couple slides, it'll keep you safe. And if I were to pitch you 3 slides on this, we could all agree that the CDC says if you exercise, it'll help with depression, stamina, strength, obesity, cancer, or not cancer, but cardiovascular disease, stroke, cholesterol levels, and things like that. Proactive. None of this is reactive. If something bad happens to you, you really can't go back in time and start exercising more. Same is true with Blue 365. It's a system and process set up by Blue Cross Blue Shield that encourages employees to live healthier. So they actually give you money towards gym memberships and things like that. Proactive. If you're proactive with security, you are in so much of a better boat, because if bad occurs, you're going to have a system in place to deal with it. And just one more pitch, baseball's back, right? I hope Red Sox fans? Great. So not too long ago, baseball teams realized that if they threw their best pitcher every single game, they're going to have some real bad shoulder and arm issues, right? So what do? They switch them out. They force them to rest for certain periods of time. The reactive side was Tommy John surgery. So they're going to actually do surgery on the elbow, and hopefully it will fix, but the pitcher will never be the same again. The proactive side is they're going to rest the pitchers on a normal basis. So proactive security is the way you want to be. How do you do it? You make it a priority. You wake up every day, you exercise. You make it a priority. You design a system that makes sense for your organization. You educate your staff, your people to be secure. It's a continuous education. It's not a one-year training. There's no click of the mouse. There's no software you can install that'll make you secure. It's really you. You are the person that can keep you secure. In more mature organizations, you can test the security. One way that I do it is, has anyone ever seen like a phishing email campaign? When I say phishing, you're shaking your heads. You've all seen it. It's an email that tries to get you to click on something. I actually have a team of students that gets paid to click those links. And what they do is they study the attack methods. So when you click that link, what you're actually doing is engaging in a new relationship with someone. They could be anywhere in the world, but they will literally, we got to a point where someone called us and tried to get us to install software on our system because they were there to fix our problem there with Microsoft or some other vendor. They're getting really smart. And it's not just about defacing websites. They're there to steal your money, which to a small business can really affect you. So when I test, what I do is I'll send out sample emails that are totally innocent, but they're phishing. They're getting you to try to click a link. And if we always get people to click the link, but every single time you test, and then again, you don't victim blame. You don't blame the person who clicked the link. You just try to re-educate people saying, hey, we sent out a phishing link. This is what it looked like. Please be safer next time. And we can only get better at this as we practice. So these things may not apply to everyone, but some companies, what they do is they hire someone to watch it. It's like having a ADT or security system for your house. And instead of just having just the security system that lets you know when someone opens your door, there's a police officer that's going to show up to your door within 5 minutes and actually go investigate what's going on in your house. That's called the Security Operations Center. It's a really effective way for someone to monitor what's going on in their organization. What's scary is sometimes people like to throw a lot of buzzwords at people, and I don't like these people too much because they just try to talk about tech and it just kind of confuses the audience. So if you ever do find yourself in a situation where you need help and you're interviewing or talking to the person who's there to help you, and they start throwing a lot of buzzwords at you, stop them and ask them to explain it because they know you don't know the buzzword. Or maybe they just don't know enough that you don't know it. But force them to actually explain it because security is not rocket science. And for those Harry Potter fans, it's not Hogwarts, it's not magic. And when someone goes in and actually should walk you through exactly what they're doing and they have a fancy proposal, make sure they explain it to you line by line. You cannot just buy X and be secure. I'm going to talk about antivirus at the end of this slide. Antivirus is not ultimately effective. It's good to some degree, but it's not ultimately effective. There is no one thing you can buy that actually solves the problem. So I'm going to throw a scenario at you, and this is what I think scares most people that are taking, your business, you're taking money, and you're worried about you have to take customer information in order to process the order, maybe to ship something out, or to perform some level of service. Does anyone know any company there's one person that experienced a data breach personally? Anyone know a Vermont company that's dealt with a data breach or heard about it recently in the news? The state ran into it, right? There's a third-party vendor that the state used to manage some information. And there's hundreds of thousands of records that got stolen. And that's pretty scary. If that happened to you as a small business, it can get really scary. There's a handout from the Attorney General's office I really encourage you to read, and we can talk a little bit about this if you want, that talks about some of the steps you should take and also how to contact them quickly if something bad were to occur. So imagine you just received a phone call that said your personal information was just posted on Pastebin. Now, Pastebin is like a website that you can just post information to. You can send information. And 300,000 identities were just stolen from your customer database. Let's say you're a pretty good small business. You have 300,000 customers for the last 5 years, and it all just got posted to the internet. And 75,000 health records were just stolen from your wearable device. If there's another scenario, if you're into health and fitness and you built a nice Kickstarter campaign, you sold these fitness trackers, and all of a sudden 75,000 health records just got stolen and put on the web. Oh my gosh, this is bad. Or maybe you're a company that deals with big data. Or maybe you don't even realize you have big data, but you're collecting statistics and information about what's going on, maybe in some region of the state of Vermont. And oh, by the way, you have customers in 50 states. This is where the data breach law gets really, really scary. And maybe they stole some data that had PII, like kryptonite. PII then triggers the data breach law in every one of those 50 states. And if one of those 50 states was North Carolina, this is what they classify as personal identifiable information. So obviously it's the SSN or taxpayer ID, passport information, bank numbers. But when you start looking down here, PII can be classified as usernames and passwords. So even if you're not taking credit card information or storing credit card information, just by having a system that your customers log into, if they breach that system and get a hold of a username and password, you may now be on the hook to deal with the data breach response that's required for dealing with a data breach, which requires then notifying all of those customers that they had a data breach and they could be victimized. This is a daunting task. I've been involved in a lot of these in the region, helping customers out and helping clients deal with this. You typically would need to hire a specialized attorney who's dealt with this before and walk you through the process. Could be very expensive, especially when you start offering credit service monitoring as a remediation plan. But you're not just dealing with the state of Vermont, you're dealing with every single state, especially if like you're a vendor on a Church Street Marketplace down in Burlington. If you have this small shop and you're selling maple syrup and you're seeing customers walk by from every single state, you're gonna have to deal with this. So there's ways to mitigate it. We're getting there, but it could get scary. I adopted this from a good friend, Cheryl Falk. She's a partner at a large law firm down in Houston. But you can go through this later on, but it talks about who to notify, timing of notification. It's all important. Vermont requires you to notify the Attorney General within 14 days of you determining there's a data breach. And if you don't, there's penalties, and there's thousands of dollars per record penalty that could be imposed on you. What should the breach notification look like? So you may have seen this before. You may have actually received this. If you were a government employee in OPM when they had their data breach, the Office of Personnel Management, you got a letter that said, oh, the incident was this, this type of information was breached, this is the risk, and we're going to give you these credit monitoring services. You also want to start planning, and the more you have this in your head before the breach occurs, the better you are on the backside. Because if you have a PR strategy ready, or a marketing person who's at least prepped to start sending information out to your customers, it really will help you through the process. And then just action items to consider. Again, knowing what data you have that could trigger a data breach notification requirement, like PII information or HIPAA, that information, keeping that safeguarded correctly could actually prevent all of this requirement altogether. Who wants to talk? So I've got two pictures up there. Both two cases I worked on in the last couple of years, let's just say. Who wants to start with the guy on the left? Or you want to end with him? So Vladimir Putin. So you may have heard of Burlington Electric. And around end of December, early January, the Washington Post posted an article saying that Burlington Electric was hacked by Russia. Within days of that announcement, actually the day of that announcement, the day after, I got a call to help respond to this. So I showed up at Burlington Electric. It is public now, so I can talk about it. The FBI was there, and we're all responding to what was going on. Burlington Electric did everything right. They had an alert that something evil was on their network that was broadcasting information that was consistent to the DNC hack, the Democratic Party hack that happened with the elections. So when that trigger went off, they contacted the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy then, kind of ran up their flagpole. At some point, that information got leaked to the Washington Post. They posted their article, and then here we are a couple days later trying to respond to this. So what they did is they had a plan in place. They knew exactly who to call. I responded within 24 hours, showed up to their site. Within probably 5 to 6 days of solid work, we knew that there was no Russia involvement. This was nonstop work looking at the system, trying to uncover what was actually going on. But they did the right thing. They contacted authorities when they were supposed to contact them. They had someone on call ready to respond if bad were to occur. Probably the more applicable story for you is the nonprofit. There's a nonprofit that I got a call from that had an email somehow that was a trusted email between management and another manager that somehow got leaked to the entire organization. Now, this nonprofit does remarkable work for the state of Vermont. They do all kinds of great stuff. And what ended up happening in this situation, it wasn't a data breach, it was more of a former IT person who left the organization, still had remote access, then remoted access into the system and was reading emails on a regular basis. And when they saw this email between management, manager A and manager B, they're like, I'm going to leak this to the entire company, and did it. We basically responded within 2 days, captured all the evidence we needed to look at, gave them their report. We referred it to law enforcement because that was an unauthorized breach into that network. But the reality is if that company wasn't prepared, it may have not only just hurt them, but all of the Vermont families they service across the state. So a lot of this is just having a plan, like having a playbook, being aware and conscious of what you need to do if something does occur. I believe it depends if you can do it in-house or outsourced. Like if you're an IT person, you might be able to do a lot of this yourself. I believe in H2H, human to human. Like a lot of say B2C, B2B relationships, but really it's finding someone you can trust. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's the IT person in your town. It's someone who can really just complement your existing team to deal with this. One important factor is to consider cyber insurance. It will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars if something really bad happens. I'm not an insurance agent, I don't know how much it actually costs, but when I deal with these and companies don't have insurance, they're typically big companies and they may have the budget to pay for it. But when you hear about companies getting hacked, it's not cheap. And it really does depend on proactive and reactivist. If you do some proactive things that we're going to talk about in the next couple slides, it'll save you on the back end. If you actually have your data encrypted, that is PII, and your laptop gets stolen, you actually don't need to notify the data breach that a data breach occurred because your data is safe. It's not exposed. And you may have heard this before, but it's not if you're going to have a cyber-related event, it's when. So I put the picture up of the fire escape plan, and the key is for you just to have a plan. Like, do I know who to call? Do I have an attorney that I've worked with maybe to set up my business, and can they help refer me to someone, or are they experienced in this? Because if you're a small business, you know how your cash flow works. If you have a 2-week gap where your credit card processor won't let you process credit cards anymore, there's another case I can talk about. There's a medium-sized business in Vermont that got a call from the Secret Service saying they had a credit card breach. And the credit card processor was about to turn off their credit card processing capability because they clearly had a problem. So responding to that, trying to investigate that, took a lot of time. And if you go without being able to process credit cards for X amount of time, can that hurt you? And probably it will. So having this plan in place before evil occurs could really save you. So if you're dealing with social media or with cloud providers, if your account does get compromised, this should be your plan. These companies are very mature. They detect a lot of bad login attempts automatically. Have you ever seen in your social media or Google accounts that someone tried to unauthorized access your account? They're really good at detecting that. Smaller companies, startup social media companies, not so much. But if you go to any one of these links, you can pretty easily reset your credentials. And they're going to ask you questions like, when did you set this account up? Who did you email last? Or do you remember the last couple of people you emailed? Because Google knows. And if you answer those questions correctly, they'll let you back into your account. What was the last password you remembered? So on and so forth. And these are just some of the data breach reporting laws for Vermont. And this is all in the handout the Attorney General prepared for you. But it mentioned this before. You have about 14 days to tell them that there was a breach. Working with the Attorney General, I've worked with them on several cases, has been a pleasure. Very smart people, and they're there to help keep Vermonters safe. And the companies that try to hide things and cover things up is usually when things get bad. So they're there to educate you. They have great resources on the website. They'll take phone calls. So please use them as a resource as well. My experience has been very, very positive. And I think as a group, as small businesses, we can do better. So we get into some of the practical things. Can't Spam Act. There's a handout on this as well. If you're directly marketing via email to your customers and representing yourself as your business, you cannot try to misrepresent yourself as another business, right? You can't do that. You also must have it. One of the big things is an unsubscribe link on the email. If you're using a third-party mass market email provider, they'll likely build this in for you, so you don't have to worry about it. It's all turnkey solution, it just works. But there are some scary fines with this. For each occurrence, it could be up to multiple thousands of dollars. I've never heard of anyone being prosecuted under this, but I'm sure it could happen. It's there really to try to stop people from spamming others. Has anyone clicked the unsubscribe link and have it actually work?
It works for like a day or two, and then they start getting stuff again.
Yeah. And sometimes the attackers, what they'll do is they'll use that, and then by you just clicking it, you just told them you're a real person, and you click links. So it's a, I don't know, double-edged sword. This is one of the scariest things that can hit you. Has anyone ever heard of anyone getting compromised or victimized by ransomware? Did it happen to anyone? A client, some people, hospitals get hit, police departments get hit, schools. I saw it right around exam time a couple years ago. A New Jersey, bless you, a New Jersey school got hit by this. And what happens is, it's totally innocent. You're going to receive an email, and it's going to say, hey, click this link, and you click the link, and then totally in the background of your system, it starts encrypting all of your important files. If you have Dropbox installed, it's going to find that and encrypt all of those files. And then what it's going to do is it's going to present you with a screen that says, pay me $250 within 24 hours, or your files are gone forever. And they really will be gone forever. There has been a lot of work into some of these variants of this malware to kind of reverse engineer how it works and then provide a key for free. Some of those exist, but most of the new stuff is unbreakable. You either pay the ransom or you don't. So how do you get around this? If you get compromised by CryptoWall or some ransomware, how can you recover from this? Backups. If you back your files up, and there's a lot of free services out there like Dropbox or Google Drive, and some of them are just a couple dollars a month. If you save your things up into the cloud or to an external hard drive or to a thumb drive, even if it encrypts your laptop, yes, you have to reinstall everything on your laptop, but your files, your important information are still safe. There was a hospital in an area I just learned about the other day that got compromised by this, and then the entire weekend they had to do everything by hand. And I'm just happy that no one got hurt, but I mean, it's a big money maker. That's why people do it, because people pay the ransom. And some of the recommendations from federal agencies are do not pay the ransom because you're only encouraging the attackers to keep doing it. But it's a business model, and it's really sophisticated cryptography, and there's no easy way to break it. So how to deal with this? Don't open or click links. Always confirm the sender that's sending it to you is truly this person. I've been spear-phished before by an attacker that assumed the identity of my mother. It was a very sophisticated attack. Because they sent an email to my mom that looked like it came from me trying to get her to click a link. And after clicking that link, what it did was it downloaded a keylogger, started logging keystrokes, and started sending it to a server in Europe. So they're eventually going to come after me with that. So it's very easy to click these links. If something does happen, call someone, have an escalation point ready to help you. Be careful on social media, because some of the videos that you see on Facebook or some other social media aren't really videos. You can click that link, and it could be something evil. Facebook's gotten better at this by the autoplay feature that just automatically plays videos. Back up your files. Cloud is an option. Just be very careful with what you put up there. You want to make sure you safeguard that account with a good, sophisticated password. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And then just call someone for help. Yep.
Backup is not 100% foolproof because some of the ransomware, they work in the background for a couple of days. And when you back up, it says, oh, backup, yeah, I'm gonna encrypt that too. Boom, your backup is encrypted too. So you need a backup that is not permanently on the system, and you need a time machine where you can say, so that means an incremental backup, where you can say, okay, I wanna restore the files as they were this point in time, and there you can figure out where the encryption started. Yep. So backup is tricky. It needs to be set up right, otherwise it's useless.
I didn't know that it did that. And that just goes to say, like, the criminals are getting really sophisticated and smart, because that's like a genius move on a criminal side. Like, oh, I'm gonna wait for you to plug your drive in and then encrypt that too. I'm gonna wait 2 days. Preventing that is just not clicking the link in and of itself, but having a more sophisticated backup process may be right for you. Typically, ransomware, what it's going to do is also look for certain file types, so pictures, documents, spreadsheets, databases, and things like that. One thing you could do is encrypt those files before backing them up, and then when the ransomware goes to find it, they're not going to find what it's looking for, and it'll just leave it alone. Because the ransomware, in order to get the ransom, it has to show you something on your computer. So it's not going to encrypt your entire computer, just your files that you care about. So if you basically hide your files in an encrypted container, we can talk about that. It's a little more sophisticated, but you can make that happen.
I nearly got myself in trouble.
Uh-oh.
I have an Epson printer, and periodically you get this little pop-up for a software update. Okay, so I did it, like I'd done many times before. Nothing ever came of it, okay? This time, shortly thereafter, I tried to use the printer, and I printed out half a page and quit. And it gave me an error message. on the printer. So I started Googling it, right, based on the error message, and I traced it down. And it says, wanted me to download a patch, okay? So it got to the point, it wouldn't allow you to download the patch. First of all, my biggest problem was I wasn't paying attention that I was not on an Epson site page, okay? So I called this number that you're supposed to call, okay? And before you know it, well, I have a conversation with this guy who's named Paul,
Yep.
which is not of European descent,
Oh, yeah.
okay? And, okay, so he asked me for some information, and before you know it, things are popping up on my screen, okay? He says, yeah, I can fix your printer for $200. Just give me your credit card number, okay? So that was it, okay? So I shut down the computer for fear he maybe did something. Okay, restarted it, backed it up to the last restore point, and nothing has happened since. Printer works fine. But I figured,
It's a great
it's an
story.
expensive printer, but I only paid $200 for it new.
Yeah, and that's what they'll do. That they'll prey on someone's sense of urgency, and some of the schemes are very sophisticated and they're very convincing. Like I was talking about with the student research we were doing on a project, they went back and forth like 5 or 6 times, and we're just at this point we're just trying to see how far he'll go. But even like 2 or 3 years ago, like there maybe was a couple of those scams around. But have you seen the scam where you receive a phone call and it's a recorded person? You see this on the news. You've gotten a phone call where it's like, oh hey, I'm just adjusting my headset. Did you hear me? What they're waiting to do is for you to say okay. And then what they're going to do is trying to charge your cell phone for a certain feed. And if you try to contest that feed, they have your recorded voice of saying, okay. They chop up the audio, edit it, and make you seem like you acknowledge the fee that are charged your phone. And who would have done that? No one, it's fun. Question?
So if you use a third-party app like Sumomi and MailChimp to build your email list,
Yep.
what if Sumomi or MailChimp are breached? What is your legal responsibility as a business owner?
It depends. I don't like that. I'm not a lawyer. If you're using a third-party service and in their terms says you are responsible for the security of this system, it's on you. And most of them are written that way. They're not transferring the risk to them. That's why the insurance can potentially help you in that case. But I would ask that question. I would call those third-party providers you're trying to use and say, well, how do you safeguard your information? Is it encrypted? Do they regularly scan for vulnerabilities and things like that?
And that information is on page 30 of 150 pages that you
Yeah.
that you just said, okay, sure.
Does anyone use Amazon for anything, like AWS or anything like that? Amazon's like a server or like a computer that runs somewhere in the internet, in the cloud. And if you look at the terms for that, they're liable for your monthly fees. So you might put $100,000s of dollars of data up there, and if something happens to it, they're not $100,000s of dollars liable. They're liable for the fee you pay every month. Wow. It's interesting. There's no easy button. But then again, not to be doom and gloom, it's all about reducing the risk for you and your company. Like trying to get to a safe comfort level of, okay, if someone gets my email list, that's not the end of the world. Because I'm not going to keep my email list with my social security numbers on this server. I'm going to keep it separated. So here's the interesting part: is we love mobility. We have iPads, iPhones, Android phones. I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, how many people have a smartphone and use it for their work? Everyone does. So here's the thing: you connect your phone with these third-party apps for ubiquity and mobility, and you just want to be able to get to it everywhere. How many people use a really sophisticated password on their phone, or a passphrase, or use your fingerprint? Couple? Good. That's awesome. You should do that. And I can't tell you enough. Like these passwords are kind of okay. Like the first one's all right, but that's pretty common. Like all you did was switch 2 letters. We switched the A to the @ symbol and the O to a 0. QWERTY 1 2 3 4 5. What is that on the keyboard? Really fast passwords. The top left, or for you, it's like this. But literally, it's the top left with the shift and the 1. Bad password. That's a known password. The last one, that's a passphrase. Use passphrases for everything. It could be the lyric of your favorite song. add a couple punctuation marks, add a capitalization here and there, now you have a really good password. So why is it cold in Vermont, question mark? I would probably do a little more capitalization in there. But what that prevents someone from doing is brute forcing your access to your account. Yep.
When you do receive an email that you know is spam, I mean, is there anybody that we can like report that to or forward it to and say, hey, I know this is spam, and there's, click on this link kind of stuff. You hover over it, you look at it, and they're gonna download or whatever. Because I just delete the emails. When I don't recognize something, I delete it.
That's a perfect practice. One thing you could do to help the community is mark it as spam. So Google's really good at spam detection because the ecosystem's really good and people mark spam as spam. So that's what I would do. I typically don't click anything on a spam email. I just say go away. And Google's really good. If anyone uses Google apps for their email, it's really good at filtering spam. Maybe once a month I'll see something get through it. But it's really hard to fool Google because they have people focused on this to build their business. And then some people are like, oh yeah, we use iPhones can't get hacked, Apple can't get hacked, and please don't think that. The reason, in my opinion, Windows and Androids are potentially getting, not Android, let's pick on Windows for a second, gets hacked is because they have market share. If I'm an attacker, I'm going after the biggest market because that has the biggest potential for return. Apple's starting to see more and more attacks going focused on it because a lot of people are starting to buy Apple now. But the reality is this doesn't work with current iOS devices, but this was a device that anyone could purchase on the internet that brute forces your password automatically. And Apple fixed this vulnerability a couple of years ago, but we were able to break into iOS devices with 4-digit pins within seconds, or within minutes, I should say. So it's just really quick. It's going to get to 2000, I think it was 15 or 16. Started asking you for 6-digit passwords. This added a complexity. It takes a lot longer. So please, enable the more advanced passwords. It will help save you. The fingerprint scanners, I use the fingerprint on the Androids and Googles. To me, it's more convenient. I use it. It's nice. I can just press my button and now I'm in my phone. I don't need to put a password in. So it's a little more secure in that regard. It's scary because you're using biometrics, something that you are instead of something that you know, like a password. And theoretically, if someone steals my fingerprint, I can't get a new fingerprint. Right. So then, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So does anyone use password managers? A couple people? I use one too. And what a password manager is a piece of software that can live in the cloud or on your computer that randomly generates passwords for you for everything. Now here's the risk. If you have the best passphrase in the world and you use it at every single website that you ever logged into, that's bad. Because website A is going to get hacked, then someone's going to get your credentials and be able to log into every single one of your other websites. So what a password manager will do, like LastPass, or there's a bunch of them out there, will basically help manage your passwords for you. Now here's the scary thing. These apps have problems too. There's Google researchers who spend all day, every day just looking for vulnerabilities in applications. So they found several in LastPass over the last couple of months that are pretty scary because it's one key to rule them all, one password to get to all of my passwords, and there's a problem if there's a problem with the app. So personally speaking, I use it because I have access to a lot of systems. I don't put my password for my sensitive things, like for work or for my banking information or even for my primary email account in this system. I use this for travel websites and things like that I don't want people to get access to. And also, again, it's all about risk. What if someone can log into my Expedia account, my travel website? What are they going to do? Book a flight? Maybe. But they can't because they don't have my credit card. I don't know. It's all about risk. And I talked about IoT, the Internet of Things. These are things that you're putting in your home. So if you have your business sensitive information in your house, are you potentially a higher risk profile? And you might see insurance companies looking at this soon. You never know. If you actually start deploying some of these sensors as I call them, in your home. So this is the Alexa. This is Echo. You talk to Alexa. Does anyone have this or the Google Home in their house? It's great. You can ask it to play music. You can ask it questions. It'll just give you answers. I'm here to tell you that the data that is stored on your phone that is used to make this communication could be totally unencrypted and totally accessible by someone who can get to your phone. Also, I did this at the lab. I pulled the chip off of this board, which was inside this device, and determined that there's no voice recorded here, but there's some information about what happened in your home. So for example, if someone was running through your house and they were chasing you, you were screaming to Alexa, call the police, there's gonna be some record of that, but a lot of people are afraid of these voice technologies because they're afraid that they're just recording their voice and keeping it forever. They are keeping it up in the cloud, but they're not keeping it locally on these devices. So if someone ever stole this from your house, you're fine. Very few people in the Northeast can do what I just did. But it's something to be aware of and cognizant of, because my father-in-law, he's gonna watch this video, I'm gonna show it to him to talk about this. He likes buying these devices, these $30, $40 devices from Amazon or wherever he's getting it from, and they are completely vulnerable to attack. They are literally a little computer you're putting in your house that has this nice camera on it that will let an attacker break into your home and do whatever they want. So before you start introducing these new features that we need in our lives, think about it. Maybe you want to never connect your laptop for work on the same network that these devices are. It's all about risk. And encryption. So if you have a modern iPhone, it's encrypted out of the box. Same thing with Android. You should encrypt all of your devices. If you're running Apple, if you're running iOS, an iPad or a MacBook, File Vault should be enabled. Same thing with Windows. If you have Windows, I think it's Vista and above, BitLocker is an encryption tool that's built into the operating system. Turn it on, because if your device gets stolen, then there's basically a nice little feature or option in this Attorney General's specification saying if the device was encrypted and it had PII or healthcare information on it, you're no longer liable for that. You don't need to go through the steps of the entire investigation because this data was encrypted. So just encrypt your data, encrypt the devices. And I put a link there. That link will walk you through how to do it if you've never done it before. It's very simple, and modern devices can handle it. It doesn't slow it down. I highly recommend it. So how many people use multi-factor authentication? Please, 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 please turn this on today when you go home. This is great. So if I log into my Gmail account, let's say one of my tech-savvy students was smart enough to get my password. Okay, you get my username and you get my password. But you need this thing. You need this thing on the left. And this is an application that runs on my phone called Google Authenticator. And what this does is cycles every, let's just say 30 seconds. And without this code for reduce-get-champlain-edu, you're not getting into my account. It's another layer of security. So even theoretically, you use the same password for all 50 of the websites you ever logged into. Someone gets a hold of that password, they try to log into your Gmail account where you have all of your secrets, all of your customer information. Without your phone or without that multi-factor, they can't get in. You can easily enable this. I like that little checkbox right there. Remember this computer for 30 days. So you only have to do it once every 30 days. And you don't want to do this on an untrusted machine. You want to do this on a machine that's your laptop or your work laptop that keeps it safe. And then every 30 days you get reprompted, hey, what's this multi-factor? You can also print out recovery keys. It's really convenient. Please enable this. Every business should do this because this will literally stop 90+% of attackers that are trying to come after you. Because if they can't access your accounts, they're not getting in. And there's backup methods. They'll actually, if you lose your phone, it'll call one of the pre-programmed phone numbers that you told it to call to give you the code that you need. So it's really nice. You'd also get advanced. You can like designate computers. You can get little security keys for your keychain if you want. It's really nice. And if you don't do this, then things like this can happen. You know, like the social media account for Burger King can be compromised with a McDonald's logo. And your brand is probably everything right now, depending what type of business you're in. And the last thing you want is your brand to get tarnished in some way by a breach or a compromise. So by having multi-factor authentication on your social media accounts, you can protect yourself from that. PCI. Is anyone taking credit cards for business? There is an entire list of standards that you need to make sure you're compliant with. You can shift a lot of this risk to if you're using a third party to process your credit cards, which will help you. Like, so if you're using like little swipe things you can plug into your phone, that'll help. But you still are required to make sure you have a chip and pin reader. Have you seen this trend at stores? Now you gotta plug your credit card in and get new chips in your cards. What happened with this is over the next few years, they'll be everywhere, like at gas pumps and everything. So in the past, it used to be if there is a fraud committed on a credit card, the credit card processor would pick up the bill. The banks would pick up the bill. But now if you don't have one of these chip readers in your processing system, your point of sale system, or your phone collector, and there's a fraud that was done with a credit card that you swiped, you are liable. And that can get really expensive really fast. So I put 2 links there. One's from MasterCard that kind of set up the PCI standard, and one's a great website, PCISecurityStandards.org. Walk you through this, very easy to get through. Just make sure you're safe on this because you don't want to become liable for fraudulent transactions. And they will pick on small businesses, attackers, for this. Have you ever connected to unsecure Wi-Fi? Please don't. That's just the fun pick. And you don't want to connect to unsecure Wi-Fi for a couple of reasons. One, if someone's outside listening to this whole conversation, that's like connecting to unsecure Wi-Fi. If someone evil is on that network, or even not evil, they can be watching everything that you're doing. And it can get really scary. So one way to protect yourself here is to use a virtual private network, which is usually a couple dollars a month. You can also use your phone as a hotspot. So if you have that feature, if I'm at an airport or at Starbucks, I'm not going to connect to their network that's free. It's great, it's free, convenient, but no, it's never free. There's always a cost. So if you put your phone into a hotspot mode, you can then connect your laptop to your phone via Wi-Fi and then out through the cell network. It's not the most secure, but it's more secure than connecting to an open, unencrypted Wi-Fi. If you are connecting to an unsecure Wi-Fi, make sure you trust it. Make sure you know what it is, because evil could still occur. And then I'm here to tell you that even secure Wi-Fi could be bad. So I'm at a conference in Las Vegas, and it's a big cybersecurity digital forensic conference. And all of a sudden, I see my home network. My Wi-Fi just snaps to my home network. And I'm like, what the heck is this? What happened was there's a sophisticated attacker in the audience with this $100 device that essentially your laptop and your phone that's always was on Wi-Fi is constantly trying to connect to your known networks. So Xfinity or your home SSID or home network, whatever, Starbucks, whatever it connected to in the past, it tries to reconnect. So you've got this evil device that listens for that, hears it, then stands up a network with your house SSID. It's an encrypted network. But what it does is it basically then creates a man in the middle. So it then connects to your phone, then connects to it connects to the internet, you then connect out to the internet, but it's watching everything that you're doing. So how do you protect yourself against this? This is a pretty sophisticated attack, but again, $100, 15 seconds on YouTube, you can learn how to use it. To protect yourself, you don't, when you're somewhere connecting to a Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden you're cognizant of this, you see your device connect to your home network or a network that isn't where you are, unconnect from it, like disconnect. And reconnect to yours, and probably move out of the range. Someone needs to be within range, probably 300-400 feet of you to make this happen, but it's very common. I shouldn't say very common. It's easy to do. That's a pineapple, Wi-Fi pineapple.
But you said it's trying to connect to like Starbucks or where like other places that you've been before. So let's just say you were at the Starbucks and you're connected to the Starbucks. Will it be going through there?
It'll stand up a second network called Starbucks. And the way this works is kind of like your cell phone. Your cell phone, you ever lose service, your cell phone gets really hot? Why? Because it's scanning for towers, trying to find towers. Your device will connect to the strongest, cleanest connection. So what that device will try to do is, if they're standing right next to you, it's going to be a stronger connection than the one that's up on the wall. So just be aware of that. But you'll see the connection change. Like your laptop will say, oh, now connected to Starbucks again. You're like, well, that's weird. I would click the Wi-Fi and look to see how many Starbucks are present, and disconnect if you really are worried. If you're using a VPN at a place that has open Wi-Fi, and it's a good VPN, you're fine. You should be fine. But your VPNs cost money, usually between like $5 and $10 a month.
That pineapple, does it have a legitimate use? Okay, so, but it can be sold legally.
Yeah, it's not violating any FCC laws. It's sold in the U.S. It was designed by a company right here in Vermont. They're really good at what they do. Yeah. No, it wasn't Champlain.
But it's not like typically used as like a booster for,
No, there's no legitimate use for this.
So when that reads your cell phone is putting out the password as well?
It depends what's going on. So if you're connecting via an app on your phone that's transmitting data unencrypted, it's seeing all the data you're sending back and forth. But if you're using like Facebook or an app that does encrypt all your information,
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant the password to the network.
it doesn't guess the password to your network, but your device will try to connect to it because it still sees the SSID. It does some magic, but it works.
Your device it stores your passwords right to all these networks that you go out on if one is required. So that's how they get in. So I'm trying to understand how this works.
We can move on, but I can totally demo this in the future if you want. We have one. And one good use for this is to test employees to see if they would recognize this happening. I mean, I didn't want to say it's totally evil, but it is. Antivirus, I talked about this earlier. It's truly like the flu shot. So the flu shot is designed to catch the major strands of the flu that the CDC feels is going to be around this year. So the flu shot only knows what it knows. Same with antivirus. So if a new virus gets written today, antivirus might not pick it up. And that's the problem. To make a new virus, and depending on how the antivirus works, you literally just need to recompile the code, and it will beat a signature-based detection antivirus tool. So what does that mean? Like if I'm the flu and I mutate, well, guess what? Your flu shot just became meaningless. So that's the issue with antivirus. You definitely need it still. It's not obsolete, but you can't just buy it and expect to be safe and you're not going to get the flu. You know, you get the flu shot and still get the flu. Some antivirus are better than others. Some of them are actually turning into host intrusion detection systems. One free one called Sophos will actually monitor your device in a more sophisticated way, look for intrusions, look for bad things, look for malware, and let you know when that is there. And I don't work for Sophos or anything like that, but it's just something I use, and it works pretty well. So in closing, try to use good cyber hygiene.
There isn't any.
Yeah. That's what we say to do. Find a confidant, and that could be anyone. It could be your best friend, it could be a neighbor, it could be a sibling, a kid that you know in the neighborhood. If you feel technology is too intimidating for you, could be like a professional services group. Maybe here in Williston, you can find a big box store that could provide you some services if you need it. But really, just find someone you can go trust and talk to when it comes to security, and consider some type of third party to just check. Do a hygiene check for you. Maybe it's a once-a-year thing. Maybe it's just a conversation with a friend or someone. I mean, the Security Operations Center is a little more over the top. It's for bigger companies. But if you're just concerned, like, oh, I clicked the link, I don't know if I'm in trouble. You want to find someone who actually has the ability to tell you if you're in trouble or not. Especially if you're dealing with customer information, because you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of that conversation with the Attorney General's office. I'll open up the floor for questions.
All right, we have about 10, 15 minutes for questions. So try and keep one per person.
Yeah, just a quick question. We talked about like opening emails and then clicking on the link. Not a good idea. What about just opening an email from is there any danger in that, or do you have to click on a link in order for it to be a problem?
It depends. So if you have render images automatically enabled, like if you ever see the email you open up and there's like that box that looks like a picture but there's no picture, you have to click a button to make the picture show up. If you're using a web-based email that has that disabled, you should be fine. Nothing should execute in there without your knowledge, unless there's some vulnerability with the web browser. So if Google Chrome or Internet Explorer has an issue that hasn't been fixed yet, they can still get in. But 99% of the time, as long as you don't click it and you don't enable pictures automatically, you should be good. Now, a quick note on that. With pictures, have you ever bugged an email before with your marketing techniques? Have you seen this? Like if I get an email from my favorite company and it says, oh, show pictures. As soon as I show pictures, I'm telling them where I am. So an attacker, if you really want to know where someone is, you could have that, oh, look at this picture I just sent you. Click. And what happens is the server needs to then send you the picture, and just that transmission will let them know exactly where you, or regionally where you are.
Got three. One is on penetration testing, like you were just saying, have somebody do that. Is there somebody that does that on more of a smaller scale for an individual?
So it depends on what you need done, but yes, there's people out there. So for example, I have students who would do it. There's smaller IT security companies in the region who can help. It depends if they have resources available for a small person, or for a small individual cost from a perspective, because usually they're working on like big customers. But yes, they exist. I would contact local schools. You can contact me. I can put you in touch with some students who can help. But yeah, definitely, yeah.
Any suggestions for recognizing suspicious links?
Should someone, as part of your business, do they send you links, right? So like the question is, should you even open a link that someone sends you? I would look at the URL very closely. You look at the www, look at the name very closely, and then look at the .com, is that normal? If it's a long URL, that's usually something suspicious. I would copy and paste it or even just type it manually into a web browser. There is a website you go to check its reputation. It's called Virustotal.com. Purchased by Google a couple years ago. It's remarkable. There are tens of hundreds of big security companies that feed intelligence into this system. So what you can do is you can search the URL in Virustotal, and it will tell you if it's a malicious domain or not. So it's really nice and convenient. It's like having a nice little safety check for the domain if you're worried.
Secure as Google Docs in general. Pretty secure. Pretty secure.
And if you've looked at the administrator side, so if you own your own business, you looked at the admin panel for Google Docs and Google Apps. They have a lot of neat features you can turn on, like auditing. You can see who went into the document, who shared it. The only thing that's risky about any of that is it's so easy to share a file wrong, if you're to share a file or with someone else. But Google being Google, we all trust Google, right? And Apple with our information. Yeah, from a security standpoint, they're pretty good.
Email encryption, like if you want to encrypt like all your emails that you're sending, what would you suggest for that?
So there is a plugin that you can get for Google Chrome. It's on my computer. I can look at it after and give the name. But it will use PGP, public key exchange encryption. So the roadblock for most people in the room is, oh, if you send an encrypted envelope that only one person can open, then that person has to know how to open the envelope. And that's a technical hurdle they have to go over. But if you really want to be secure on both sides of communication, that's what I would use is PGP communication. There's several web services that do this for you. Google's starting to integrate it slowly, and hopefully they do it, I'm guessing, by the end of the year. But like Hushmail is one. There's one that's based out of Switzerland that does it as well. But yeah, when you send an email, if it's not encrypted, it's like sending a postcard on vacation. Anyone in transit can read that email. So when you send, like, I've dealt with some clients that have like really sensitive information and they're like sending it just email, like, oh, it's just going to the person down the hall. It's like, no, it's not. It's going to the internet and coming back down. So it's something you want to be aware of.
Sometimes I get emails from schools. I work as a tutor.
Yep.
And there'll be this encryption, there'll be a code to unlock the attached document, but it's sent in the same email. Isn't that kind of...
Yeah, I love that. Here's an encrypted file. The password is this. I just sent a report to a client. I sent them a PDF encrypted. And I said, call me for the password. That is proper. And I've actually seen some get really sophisticated. They send the encrypted PDF and they send another email with the password. I'm like, that's... And then, it's terrible. It's not as safe. I mean, yeah. It's like, check for the key for my house. It's not under the mat. It's just under the coffee pot or flower pot. I don't know. I think we need to retrain those people to say, look, that's not really good cyber hygiene. I think you should call me with the password. Even if they sent it via a separate medium, so send it via email, the file, then send a text message with the password. It's not the most secure, but it's more secure than that because you actually need physical access to the phone. You need the PIN to get in the phone or the fingerprint to get that text message. Now, is text messaging super secure? No. But who are you trying to defend it against? If you're dealing with any type of sensitive like FERPA or health information in that document, I'd make sure someone picked up the phone and called me with the credentials. I think it's just retraining the employees to do a better job because that's not safe. There's also third-party services you can use to help manage that. Like I use Dropbox. You can share someone a link to your file, give it a 2-day expiration, and password to protect it. So they have 2 days to call you, and if they don't call you, then the password link or the link to the file expires. Then they have to call you back.